What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So lately we've been talking about PC builds, and my goal here is to help and aid those who want to move from console to PC to be able to make the transition as smooth as possible to give you guys the best information. Now, at the same time, there are going to be people who maybe push back, or at least, the conversation is ongoing. I don't presume to be right on all these points. However, we have the data and we have the evidence to be able to show that the value proposition of a PC is way better than that of a console by leaps and bounds. Even if you buy a PC that is not sitting in the same specs as a PS5 or the perceived PS5 equivalent or the perceived Xbox Series X equivalent, that PC is still a better machine simply because of the scope and functionality that it has that the console doesn't have, be it hardware or even software capabilities. It's a simple equation. However, there are misconceptions out here. There are people who want to make sure that we get the evidence right. And so when they put their arguments forward, I have to basically go ahead and say, okay, maybe we can run my argument through a series of different rigorous tests to be able to go ahead and show possibly why, I may be off based on some of the calculations that I'm doing. So what I've been doing lately is I've been putting together some benchmarks and some tests. If I open my content library for you guys, you'll see that I have a number of videos that are still private that are yet to be released because I've been doing a lot of these metrics. So hopefully very soon, God willing, I'll be bringing them to you guys so that you guys can take a look at it. It's going to be very interesting to talk about this stuff. However, there is one concern that has come to light that one of my audience members brought up, and that is in the math that I'm using, I'm not being fair because I'm using the math from when I bought my PlayStation 5 to go ahead and describe, the cost of a console. Now, to be honest, I don't think that's actually an argument against the case, but I want to entertain it because I want to make sure that we narrow things down to the most, critical point that we actually can put it, when it comes to the whole perspective and when it comes to conversation. So this is a small qualms. The person says, one of my audience members here says, you're saying that the PlayStation 5 right now is $500, or when you bought it was $500, but that's not really relevant. You have to go with the current market pricing of the PS5, especially when you want to help people to be able to go ahead and make a good decision. I say, okay, fair enough. Now, let's go ahead and look at that number right now. The PlayStation 5 currently is $399. If you look at the budget that I have, and this is the comment, shout out to you, Mr. Jiggery Pokery, we're going to go ahead and make sure that we alleviate your concerns. So this is a $500 price point, and I showed you guys my total. So if we say $399 and we say, what does it cost to run your PlayStation 5? Extra controller is still actually more than $60 right now. It was $60 at the time I bought it, but you can have it. PlayStation Plus is basically based on the cost that I've spent since I owned the console. I don't even know how we're going to even do that, because if we go by the price right now, PlayStation Plus is actually a little bit more. It's about $80. So shall we take $80 times the 3 years that I've actually spent? Let's do it, since we're going to be fair, and let's just say that's the case. So at the end of the day, we're still short like a few dollars, or even if we leave it at the number that it was before, we're still at $809. The PC build that I'm proposing that can do the job over console still remains a PC that is at $650 after all is said and done. Even with taxes included, it still came out to be $650. We ran the math on a separate video so that you guys could see. You may have to search through the Tech Topics playlist to be able to find it. It has a big old yellow poster as a thumbnail, so you should be able to easily locate it. But there are other concerns that were also raised in this particular, thing. Mr. Jiggery Poker said consoles have 16 gigs of VRAM. It doesn't matter, because the 16 gigs of VRAM at the end of the day cannot necessarily even account for other VRAM, necessary tasks that you can pull off on console, even with the 12 gigs of VRAM. So even with 12 gigs of VRAM that the 3060 has that I put together in this build, and the 16 gigs of VRAM that the PlayStation 5 may have, PlayStation 5 cannot use that VRAM to run Blender, cannot do Unreal Engine, cannot carry out other tasks that are necessary for you to be able to say you have the wider scope. You cannot do anything like run high, intensive graphic required picture, and graphical software on there. You can't do anything other than that. You can't do, high video encoding on there, or high, or graphic card demanding, or GPU accelerated hardware, encoding, video editing. Can't do all that stuff. So that 16 gigs of VRAM is only relegated to gameplay. And when we even go to the 1080 comparisons, we're still in a solid good spot with this $650 build, as shown in these videos that, I showed you guys just a second ago. So I guess the VRAM concern, I don't know what you're going to do with it, but okay, sure. 4 extra gigs of VRAM. Woohoo! Now, console manufacturers making products at a loss is bad for me. I never said that. In this video, actually, I pointed out something that I thought was interesting, that even the $500 console that the manufacturers are selling to you is actually costing a lot more, based on articles that show that the PlayStation 5 is actually sold to you at the $499 version anyways, was sold to you at a loss at one point. Eventually, seemed like Sony was saying that it was breaking even or whatever it is. And even in the case of Xbox, they lose anywhere from $100 to $200 per sale. So I'm not saying that it's actually bad for the consumer or whatever it is. Mr. Jiggery Pokery, please do not, don't misconstrue my statements, and it was my fault. I should have been clear. It's just that, is it really a $500, console? That's what I was just asking. I wasn't saying it was bad. You're not a shareholder. We get it. You're just a gamer. I get it too. And then they also said you need to announce a caveat that the second cost you add is for online. I did. PlayStation Plus. It says it right here. Maybe they didn't see that. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that we got everything in place. And you say it's like 1 in 3, and that number might be inflated for people like me who buy PlayStation Plus Extra for the 400 plus game catalog and don't play online. Well, if you're basically getting these games on a subscription, Epic Games Store still beats that proposition, because you don't have to pay a dime for subscribing to the Epic Games Store proposition, and you still have access to Epic Games games when it comes down to when all is said and done. So let me show you guys my Epic Games library, and basically we'll look at how many games I have purchased. Oh, this is my Unreal Engine library, sorry. But there are all these free games that I got, and I think I've only bought maybe like 5 games out of the, what's the total number of games I have on here? I think the last time I looked, it was close to 60 or 50 or so. And I don't have to have a subscription. And if the subscription basically goes out, no one's going to come here and take the game and say, oh, you didn't pay up this month. And if you have something like, say, Amazon Prime, which you usually use regardless of, whatever your use case is for, Amazon gives a lot of free games as well, too. They'll give good old games versions of, some other older games, and they're just yours to keep. It's not like PlayStation Plus. I have PlayStation Plus. I mean, I subscribe, but whenever my subscription would lapse, I mean, everybody knows what happens after that. So I don't necessarily think that that is a benefit in a sense. So let's also make sure that that's clarified. And then, remember, free-to-play doesn't require PlayStation Plus at all, which is what most people play. Actually, most people play free-to-play, as well as Call of Duty, which requires a pay-to-play, as well as FIFA, which also requires a pay-to-play. I'm a console gamer, and this is what makes me even much, I think, a little bit more... It's difficult to be able to run these arguments past me, because I've also played on console before, and I still do play on console. The Division 2, which is also a very heavily played game, is why I actually buy PlayStation Plus. So maybe the 1 in 3 you may be referring to, I can show you a whole Discord server full of thousands of PlayStation players that actually play the Division, which is fully a resource, a game where you're required to actually pay for your game subscription on PlayStation, Xbox. On PC though, which I also play on, when I run with my guys on PC, I don't have to pay for that. So again, the proposition is hard to beat. It's only a matter of the individual choosing and saying, I want to do this. It's not a matter of cost per se all the time. Yes, in some regions there are cost prohibitions. I'm not going to go ahead and sit here and say it's all fine and dandy. I've mentioned this in other videos before. If you're an Aussie, New Zealander, even some folk in some parts of Europe and some parts of Asia, the costs are insane to be able to build a PC. But even in these regions, a lot of people still opt to build a PC because they still understand how critical it is for you to be able to get a machine that does not keep you locked in to an ecosystem where all it is you become a billing machine once they get you in there. That's all they want to do. They want you to basically start spending money once you buy the subsidized console. They want to keep you on a subscription service, so they loan you these games only based on when you subscribe. And then if you decide you don't want to subscribe, those games are gone. And when you buy the games, you're buying them at a premium because they want to recover the money that they actually lost when they sold you this console for $399. Do you understand what this gap actually means for a console that more than likely costs more than $500 to produce? If they will slash that for you, then there's usually something on the back end that they want to collect. I mean, you're a consumer, it's your choice, it's your decision, but we're not going to sit here and pretend like Nvidia, which is a company that's worth way more than Sony and their PlayStation division, and AMD, which is a significant technology company, and Intel don't know what they're doing. They make their components in different price categories, and they tactfully and masterfully design them to be able to carry out some really good tasks, just to make sure that they have just enough to appeal or at least tease whomever may look outside of the console to want to go into PC. I mean, Intel is now in the graphics card business, so if they were to take another footing in, that's the end. I don't even see any reason why anybody should bother having those three juggernauts fighting each other. It's the best place to be. For the longest time, PlayStation and Xbox have basically been the major two fighting each other while Nintendo has carved a niche for itself. But on the PC part, we're eating good because this competition has borne what I think the greatest set of opportunities that we've seen since Ryzen hit and the Zen 3, Zen 2 architecture started to hit the market. Everything changed. Even that's one of the reasons your consoles can even have Zen 2 architecture, because AMD found a way to be able to bridge the market gap between affordability and good performance. If it wasn't for that, we'd be sitting on consoles that weren't even as performant as this, in my opinion, and still will cost just as much. So shout out to AMD, the PC manufacturers, for carrying the PC market and carrying the console market. It's insane, man. So if you want to come to PC and you're looking towards it, I say there is no better time for you to make that shift, than now. Maybe there might be a better time, later down the road. But for now, I think it's actually a pretty, great place to be able to play your games down the road. So thanks so much for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience. And hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.